Hello, everyone. Well, I thought it was time to do another personal share, personal update as I go through this integration of no self. What a trip, man. For those of you who are new, I have some new subscribers. Welcome. Thank you. I hope I offer something of value to you. Really, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, message me and I'll be glad to answer them. So for those of you who are new, who may not know, I'm sharing personal experiences from what appears to be a no self or Brahman awareness awakening. It certainly was a big enough glimpse. You know, when you catch a glimpse of no self, got my hair there. No self-awareness or awakening is when you wake up to the realization that, holy shit, no one is here. There's never been anyone here. You wake up to the illusion of the ego. I mean, bigger than some other awakenings, bigger than a self-realization. This goes beyond consciousness. And you have a realization that you're emptiness. You wake up to emptiness. You wake up to your true self prior to consciousness. And it's this holy shit moment that there was never any self here. And for most people, when they wake up to this awareness, it's a very progressive integration, meaning that you just suddenly you're not stable in this. For some people, yeah, very rare occasions, people will wake up and they go, oh, no self is here. And they kind of live this steady, beautiful life. Then mind shuts down and it's what appears to be peace and bliss and silence, and lucky them. But for most of us, and my experience is shit hits the fan because you get this realization, and it's not a fleeting realization. You can have these spiritual awakenings, but sometimes they're what is the word, transient. They're just a glimpse and kind of go back. But this for me was a big enough glimpse. Well, I don't even know when it happened, a year ago, maybe less than a year ago, that it shakes your world. Like you can never go back. And what happens is you wake up to no self, you know no self is here, but then suddenly all the selves that your ego created for you, all these images of yourself that you thought you were, stand up in line, and they're like charging at you, and you have to do battle with all the selves that you thought you were. So even though you've awakened to no self, you have even more selves than the one self you thought you were that you have to deal with. And it is truly a battle. And so that's what's been happening for me. And I kind of, I've done battle with several of these big images, constructs of self, and enough of them have fallen away. But the deeper you go, the bigger the selves become, but the more, let's say, transparent they are, or you can't see them very well, but they're huge. And you realize they've been infecting your whole life, but you couldn't really see it. And they go all the way back to the very beginning, right? Early childhood, like it's been infecting you since childhood or prior to birth. And you would think, my God, I've been working on myself for 40 years. Haven't I dealt with those silly little issues? No, you haven't, because you couldn't really see it. So anyway, I've done battle with a few of these images. And what's happening now is so let me get my story straight here. So the last couple of months, I've really been, so I've knocked out some huge images. And I kind of reached this period, the last month or so since my last update, where it felt pretty stable, right? But when you do battle with one of your images or selves or constructs, there's always a bliss. You do battle with it, you kind of win over it, you dissolve that construct, and then there's a stabilizing period. Well, when you see it, here's what happens. When you become fully aware and see the untruths of a self or a construct in your ego, then you will have this period of almost grief, because it's a death, and ego it's been seen. And you have to understand, this ego that we've built around us, I want to say it's like a living thing. You have to treat it as a living thing, because it is. It's a living quality, and it's going to respond and react to the actions you take against it. So when a self is seen as false, stomach is growling. This happens so often. I think I get nervous when I do these videos and it makes my stomach growl or something. Anyway, so you've seen something, and I'm just saying this for when you're having awarenesses and aha, and you see things in yourself, do not be surprised by the next day or the next couple of days. You will have this period of anger or guilt or depression, self-pity, and just really feeling terrible, because the ego now wants to blame you and make you feel guilty for what you've seen. It's a twisted survival mechanism of the ego. So don't worry, okay? It's going through a death, and it wants to fight you and make you feel guilty for seeing it. But eventually it works itself out. You go through a little dark period. It's a death. You feel sad, depressed, a little angry, whatever. And then you reach stabilization. Well, I had a little stabilization and everything felt kind of good. And I thought, okay, right, emptiness is great. And I was feeling the silence move deeper and deeper, because as you go through this no self deconstruction and embodiment, as awareness or silence, I'm using these words, one and the same, descends, or you embody it, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and it gets down to those core issues, so unconscious. Anyway, so during this time, I made suggestions in some of my videos for all of us to during this isolation time, to really sit with yourself, to see if you could just sit with yourself, no distractions, and see how that feels. And I take my own advice. I would never offer a suggestion if I didn't do it myself. So during this time, I did that. It's not a pretty picture. Didn't like what I was seeing, but I had the opportunity to confront some of my deepest fears. I'm sure there's more, but that feeling of like falling into the abyss, not having any ground of support, financial support, all of it, those things came up. I felt them. And then I had opportunities in the real world to be tested or initiated in how I would respond if support systems or those types of fears would come into my reality. I think I did pretty good. I did have some opportunities to be tested, and I really feel like I've reached a point where, I'm not saying this for you, universe, to test me, but whatever you throw at me, I can fully trust in the universe with my heart and the helpers to help me through that situation, that they are there to guide me in any way. So I really feel like I faced that quite well. And then I had to face this huge image construct in me that I didn't know was there, but I knew was there. it was this, it's called the hawk, or the image of the superior man. And you will recognize parts of this in yourself. We all sort of have it, but some of us have huge, and I had huge, where it's, you know, judging others. And the image of the hawk image is the person that is always looking for evil, quote unquote evil, or wrongdoing in others. Like, God, I hate this in myself. I'm embarrassed to say it, but you know, I was never consciously looking for how people were out of alignment for the divine rules or how to live. Like, for example, in my neighborhood, looking like getting pissed at speeders, or I have noisy neighbors, barking dogs, you know, like getting upset and seeing how people are so disrespectful to other people. And it would just piss me off, right? We're all judging others, but it really was a personal, like I took it personally, and I would get angry because I just don't understand how people don't take into consideration other people. So I became like this hawk, always looking around and seeing how people were looking to see, not consciously, where people were out of alignment or doing something wrong that irritated me, or was like, whatever, morally, you know, animal abusers and things like that. Anyway, it's not a pretty image that I like to admit to, but we all have it. But anyway, mine was quite big. And I got the opportunity to see the hugeness of it because I had some karmic interactions from a neighbor, well, I don't even know this guy. He's like a block and a half up. Anyway, he's got the image of the hawk, where he is so concerned about what others are doing in the neighborhood. And I promise you, I'm not that bad at all. I just don't like speeders because I don't want the animals to get hit. I've picked up enough dead animals, and there's kids on our street. I think it's, you know, it just pisses me off that people are irresponsible, speeding in a neighborhood, or letting their dogs bark all night and I can't sleep, things like that. But I'm not as bad as this guy up the street. Anyway, a block and a half away, and he's apparently got a rose garden, and he's been on the hunt, the hawk in him, driving around the neighborhoods trying to find the cats that are pooping in his rose garden. And because I have cats, and I do not let them run free, but I'm here most of the time, and I'm usually working outside or I have my door open, and I will let one or two of them sit on the porch and sit on the front yard because they love to chase the little mice that are in the tree in the front yard. I do not let them roam the neighborhood. But this guy has been kind of stalking me, literally taking pictures of the cats that are sitting on my front porch while I'm there working in my yard. He's been doing this for weeks, and I just didn't quite realize what he was doing. Anyway, he confronted me and said, I'm going to turn you into the code people because you're letting your cats run up there and they're pooping in my yard. And this was my karmic payback for, I guess, some of the things that I've done, you know, calling about speeders in the neighborhood, that I was being the hawk, and now the hawk was looking at me. And I truly felt in him, I got to see myself. So I really, in the moment he was confronting me, I was totally aware of what was happening. And there was no emotional reaction, which I think kind of pissed him off. But anyway, it's kind of ridiculous. He knows nothing about cats, but my cat isn't going to travel a block and a half away to go poop in his yard and come back. Anyway, so that was, it's a silly situation, but it really taught me to see this huge ego image construct that I had. And with the help of my helpers and the I Ching. I did the work to deprogram that because I could see it. And after deprogramming this thing, it took several days, maybe a week, I don't even know. Suddenly one day I woke up and it was gone. And it took me a few days because I couldn't figure out what was happening. I woke up and once again, I had entered into this huge space, even bigger than before, of emptiness. And I could feel this total detachment, emptiness, silence, like I was lighter, but I just couldn't feel anything, like more emptiness and silence or something had descended and embodied because that construct had been dissolved and more of no self could be embodied. And when that happens, I mean, it feels good, but it also doesn't feel good because the thing about no self is the experiencer of things is also gone. So you lose your emotion, you get very detached and you don't have a lot of experiences anymore. And this is kind of freaky for the ego. Okay. So it was weird. So anyway, I just was in this zone. While it was feeling weird, it felt great. And suddenly I realized all the neighbors and the issues that were bugging me, they were not bugging me anymore. The speeders were going by, and this one speeder in general, in specific, that I was having an issue with, I saw her go by and there was nothing. In fact, there was a heartfelt compassion and understanding and like an apology. Speeders didn't bother me. All these things that used to bother me didn't bother me anymore. In fact, I wasn't even noticing them. And the issues that I had with neighbors were suddenly going away. So it was the hawk in me that was, being pissed about these situations that were actually keeping them alive. And as soon as I deconstructed them and detached from that, then the universe and the helpers were able to work with my neighbors, helpers, and resolve the situations. And it's been really, really lovely. Now, I'm not going to say the whole construct is gone. Ego still wants to reinsert itself because you can deconstruct something and it wants to reattach. And that's where it takes all your strength to say, no, not going to do it. No. But anyway, that was a huge shift, a huge shift. I don't need to be judging anybody, okay? Right? Lest yourself be judged. And I was. Anyway, here's another shift. Like after that construct, and I noticed this huge emptiness, like I can't even believe I'm going to say this. Suddenly, I'm watching our president, Trump, and I suddenly, it's like somebody took off a veil and I don't see what I used to see anymore. Like, I don't know why people treat him with such disrespect. Like I'm seeing a whole different version of Trump. And I really don't want to voice any opinion. Well, I mean, it's like, I don't know, everything's changed. Before I couldn't even stand to hear his voice. And everything about him irritated me, although I really it just irritated me. And then all of a sudden, he doesn't. And I can see like deeper into him. It's so strange. And my opinions and or feeling towards some of the tarot readers or people I've been watching, commentators, spiritual commentators and tarot readers about everything that's going on, I can't stomach them anymore, because the way they speak about just things in general, and particularly the name calling of our president and all the shit that's going on, I can't stomach it anymore. It doesn't feel right. First of all, that's a message. We need to stop with the name calling. That's just baloney. It does no good whatsoever. I mean, don't you realize that all this name calling just creates more of what you don't want? I mean, come on, spiritual people. Enough with it, okay? You're spewing your hatred in tarot readings under this spiritual umbrella. It's bullshit. Oh, anyway, enough of that. But the point is, after this deconstruction of this huge image, once again, my whole view of things has changed. I'm less bothered by hardly anything. In fact, I noticed that during this whole beginning of the pandemic, like, I just felt nothing. I feel nothing. And I'm finding, despite my ramblings on videos, that I have very little to say anymore. Like, I don't really feel like talking because I can't find an opinion. Like, I don't have anything to say anymore. Anyway, so that was a huge image deconstruction, and I'm so glad to be done with that. And then I think I know I'm hitting my core wound. And boy, you don't know how deep this wound is until you're actually upon it. You may think you've worked with your core wound, because I thought I was working with my core wound once before, but no. I had to get rid of that one image for me to fully see why that image was created and why everything else in my life was created. And it has to do with my core wound. And it's really tough. It's a deep issue. But what I've discovered, what I saw recently, is my head spinning. I'm right in the middle of it right now. But this core wound, this is how it feels like to me. You know, the core wound is the wound that you carry. It's personal and collective, ancestral collective. And it's imprinted on you, I think, in the 3rd month while in utero, okay? So it's your collective responsibility, but you take it on personally. And here's what it feels like. You can't see it until you can see it. You have to deconstruct all these other things in order to see it. And it's brutal. Here's how I visualize it. You know, you're in the womb, and you're in this wonderful, watery, blissful place. But that watery, blissful place has been infiltrated, and you've been absorbing all the thoughts of your parents during that time, all the vibrational frequencies, and you know that, okay? And the collective as well. And so that seeps into that watery goodness, and it seeps right into your DNA. Like it's the infection that lives with you from the moment you're born. So you're born, and okay, they try to wash off that stuff, but they never get rid of it fully. To me, this is what it feels like. It's like you're left with this invisible sticky film. Your core wound has seeped in there, and it's so sticky. And it's like the guy that has honey or glue and they throw a fan of feathers. This is how your ego is built. It's all based on this core wound that has infected every aspect of your life from the moment you're born. And all these feathers start sticking to you, all your ego programs, thoughts. And you get on the spiritual journey and you start plucking them all away and you think you're great. And you like, okay, now I don't hardly have any feathers. I'm perfect. I'm enlightened. And yet there's this stickiness. There's something there, but you can't see it because it's so totally absorbed. And my core wound, now in the gene keys, I have the core wound, line 1 of repression and oppression. But there's going to be a situation or a trigger in your life that causes repression or whatever your line number is. And my trigger, and it's going to sound probably, what is the word I'm looking for? Silly to some people, insignificant to some people. But I have seen how my issue of image, physical beauty, and how I appear to others has infected and affected, excuse me, my entire life. And you may look at me now and say, what's the deal? You're fine, right? But this, by the way, appears in my soul contract. If any of you have ever had a soul contract done, the Hebrew numbers soul contract, if anybody has karmic 4/4s in their physical thing, no doubt you will deal with some kind of physical and identity crisis. Okay, I've done hundreds of soul contract readings, and everyone who's had those karmic 4/4s will deal with some kind of physical body issue, as well as personal significance, right? Anyway, just recently, my eyes were opened after this hawk image got disintegrated. I could see how my whole outlook, attitude, vibrational frequency from the beginning, since teenagers. And I did see, and I checked in with my body. I wanted to check in with my body to see, was there an event? Because I was working with the I Ching and that sage, and was there an event that really imprinted projections and poison arrows that had infected my whole life? And yes, there was. And I could see from that day in childhood how my vibrational frequency, how I instilled guilt, not so much guilt, but embarrassment of the way I look throughout my whole life, and how this embarrassment of not feeling acceptable has caused repression my whole life. Because, and it's so deep, you can't see it until you see it. I could see that every decision, every movement in my life was infected by this virus, this embarrassment that I don't want to be seen. I'm afraid to be seen because I'm completely unacceptable. Every inch of this body is unacceptable. You have to understand, this you know, I was brought up, I grew up in Hollywood for those formative years. So surrounded by people worrying about weight and beauty, and being skinny, skinny, skinny. I mean, as a child, I was a chubby kid. You know, I was made fun. This is no excuse. I'm sharing with you the ego voices that have been working within me since the very beginning. And, you know, so when I was a child, they put me on thyroid medication. My mom was constantly dieting, doing liquid diets, starving. I did the same thing at 12, at 11, 12, and 13. I was doing liquid diets. They were trying to give me thyroid medicine. I was chubby. The kids at school beat me up because I was fat. And so, you know, that was my whole perspective on life, was my acceptance into society is solely based on how I look. Even doing these videos takes me weeks, days, weeks to get the courage to think, okay, I can handle this. I can get on video. Thank God Zoom has a little bit of fuzziness. You can't see all the yuck, right? To be seen. You know, so my whole life has been warped by my warped image about body and eating and being fat. It's infected my whole life and has caused so much repression. And when you see it, you feel like really sad, because you think, this morning, I'm right in the middle of it, you know, so I'm not on the other side. I saw all the missed opportunities in my life because I'm too embarrassed to leave the house because, I don't have the right clothes, or my clothes aren't fitting anymore. And I find it very interesting that this last couple of months, my eating, I've gained weight. It's like my eating has gotten worse. It's almost as if I had to make this issue worse in my life by gaining weight, by making food this kind of crazy thing in my life in order to see it, right? So if something in your life is getting a little out of hand, maybe there's something for you to see as well. I mean, it's like I couldn't stop it. Anyway, this whole core wound thing, like, it's so, your awareness, the no self-awareness, it's so enmeshed in this construct, this stickiness, that it's very difficult. You can see it, but you're going to spend a period of time that you can't. It's like those things with the sticky back, and you're trying to find the peel edge, and you're like, I can't find the peel edge, because you want to peel it apart. You want to peel it up, that film off. But you're gonna, if you see your core wound, there's going to be a period of time that you can see it, but you're so still immersed and identified with it that you can't find the space. And you're going to be in this resistance mode, and you don't know what to do. Okay, so I'm just going to be a fat pig and eat, and you're sad and you're depressed, and all this is going on. But just hang in there. Because I think this morning I had a little glimpse, because eventually what you're hoping to find is space, that little edge, because for a while you're going to think, there is no film for me to peel off. I can't. I guess this is just me. Am I ever going to get out? And then eventually you're going to sit down, and awareness is going to find that little piece of film. You're going to, oh, I got it. You're going to get a little edge. And that's the space where awareness can come in, and eventually, give it a little time, you'll be able to peel that off, and awareness will break its identification with that issue. And it's your most physical issue because it's in your body. It's the deepest level of your programming that's been infecting you, your physical body. So core wound, this is where I'm at, dealing with this, trying to get awareness into this issue. Hopefully, who knows, I may not get it done this lifetime because it's really deep. I have good days, I have bad days, you know how it is, ladies, maybe even men. If you've been brought up under this sickness, this construct of image consciousness, you can look in a mirror, and if you see something and that mirror reflects back something really awful, then it can even ruin your entire day. And believe me, I've been there. I am there. I'm just trying to get enough awareness in there to be able to peel that off. And I'm not there yet, but I do see the light. And when I've broken that identification, I suspect and I know that that's when my real spiritual journey and giving back can begin. That's when my core wound, my core sphere, can turn into my true vocation and my gift to others. But I don't think you truly can begin that giving of others until you've seen this. Yeah? And I think that once awareness has ripped itself from that, I truly believe that that's when mind will shut off for a great deal. That ego constant chatter will silence out. And that's what happens after no self. All these identifications get whipped away, but the mind can still be a chatterer, right? But there are plenty of people out there, I've seen the interviews where the mind has shut off, but I don't think the mind can shut off. When I say mind, I mean the ego mind chatter. Okay, lower mind will still function, but it will be in service to awareness, and it will be used in service to the heart and for rational thinking as a secondary, right? But I'm speaking here, mind is the ego chatter. You can still have ego chatter, but eventually there'll be a point when that ego chatter goes, and then you truly have silence. I cannot friggin' wait for that time. And hopefully I'll get there someday, but I think there's no way that could have happened. That ego chatter, that constant chatter, you're not good enough, you're too fat, you're an embarrassment. I mean, it's been so deep in me that I've caught myself being embarrassed to, you're going to think this is so crazy, but this is how sick that ego voice was. That I would feel embarrassment and guilt for my animals to look at me when I was like looking like shit. I would think, you must think I'm an ugly human being. Now, how sick is that? Now look, that's my ego. That's how damaged that ego construct was. And that chatter in my head has been non-stop my entire life. It has stopped me from doing everything I wanted to do. That's the repression. But rest assured that I know better, right? But this beautiful being that I know that I am, this glorious spark of light with all of its beauty, I know I'm that. But that knowing has been so covered up and identified with this body image that it's been a little, this has been stronger. Anyway, that's where I'm at. I find it interesting that before, in the dark night of the soul and earlier as I've been sharing these experiences, it was very emotional. What I'm experiencing now aren't emotions per se, not a expressive experience. This literally feels like, and I said this just kind of, I blurted this out today, I feel like I'm dying. Like I can't do anything. I feel like I'm dying. And I am, and it's really good. I'm being scraped off of everything that I thought it was. And ego will sit there and tell you that you have nothing to fall back on, that there's no purpose for your life. I mean, these are the things that ego is trying to tell me. You have nothing, you have nothing. And it's absolutely right. I have nothing, nothingness to fall back on. But it's going to feel like a death. And ego isn't going to go quietly. My head's swirling. Anyway, sorry this video was so long, but I'm hoping that it's worthwhile. Yeah, so yeah, I'm not having any emotions per se. It just feels like I'm dying. And I don't know what to do. And there's nothing for me to do. There's nothing I want to do. There's nothing going on. But that's just part of the process. So perhaps if you're going through something similar, that's part of the process. You have to die in order for you to live, right? For the real you to live. Okay, enough for now. I'll talk to you later.